The future of progressive radio. This is the Dean Obadala Show on SiriusXM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're live in studio. You can watch it on Facebook.com/Dean of Radio if you so choose. Our friend Julian Zelizer, a CNN contributor, writes more articles than I've ever seen of anyone in my entire life. He's like a factory. Also a professor at Princeton University and co-author of the great book that we covered on our show with Kevin Kruse, Fault Lines, A History of the United States Since 1974. It's 19,000 pages. It's a remarkable book. It's in real time, the book. Nice to see you, Julian.
Thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
So let's talk about some of the craziness here. So what do you think, before we get to Trump's response a short time ago, which just happened at 7:05 p.m. That's the beauty of live radio. He just tweets an hour ago and it makes news, right? So the Democrats at one point, through Tom Perez, the chairman, were thinking of giving Fox News a Democratic primary debate. And I was a little worried, but I'm like, if they negotiate it the right way, the Democrats, and they make sure the people on the panel are not Sean Hannity and not Tucker, but more of the news people like, maybe Shep Smith or Brett Baer, right? A couple of people like that. That's fine. But today, Democrats said no. Tom Perez said no after the breaking news from the New Yorker magazine that essentially Fox News is, as we know, but is a PR firm for Donald Trump. What do you think? First of all, what do you think? Because some Democrats were really upset at the idea that Tom Perez was considering even having a debate sponsored by Fox News. Before we get into what happened today, what's your gut feeling about just doing that?
My gut feeling is always the more people you talk to in politics, the better. And you go to every audience, you make your case as much as possible, and that's just smarter. But it's understandable. I mean, what we have learned on Fox from watching it, but now from these stories about how it works, it's stunning. It isn't a news network, and it does actually coordinate with a party, including with the president to stifle stories, its influence in his antitrust thinking. It's not good. It's not healthy. So it's logical that the Democratic Party chair will say we're not going to throw ourselves and our candidates in front of your network. So I think that's where the argument comes from, and I understand it. My gut is still it's better to be on than not, but maybe I'm not a politician.
After reading, and if people haven't seen it, in the New Yorker, the article by Jane Mayer, The Making of the Fox News White House, and some of the stunning things to me was that ended any charade Fox News was a news media outlet was when she wrote that they had detailed information about Trump's relationship with porn star Stormy Daniels prior to the 2016 election day, but they declined to publish the stories because Rupert Murdoch said, no, we're pro-Trump. We're not going to do it. That's what a state-loved media outlet does, not a news media outlet does.
No, I mean, that article everyone should read. It's really amazing, and it goes well beyond what people know about Fox, meaning it has a very conservative slant or that its hosts campaign with the president like Sean Hannity. But it goes behind the scenes. And in that case, it's about a story stifled for the interest of one candidate. And what I referred to before is the discussion of the antitrust decision with AT&T and Time Warner, which includes CNN. And this was part of his anger about CNN was part of why he wanted this stopped. And this is all a whole kind of piece which gets to the heart of the conservative media and Fox News that's troubling.
In the article, and tomorrow I have Angelo Corson on from Media Matters, who's he's a thorn in the side of Fox Newsers. So we're going to go through it in great detail. It's stunning read. And what Julian was just talking about was Trump wanted his former chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, to pressure the Justice Department to stop the merger because he hated CNN that much. Right. That's not what presidents do. That's what Richard Nixon did. Nixon did that. Yeah. But that's not what normal presidents who don't get impeached or close to impeached do. But Tom Perez in a statement today saying, because of that article, he said in the statement, I believe that a key pathway to victory is to continue to expand our electorate and reach all voters. That is why I had made a priority to talk to people, including Fox News. But recent reporting in The New Yorker on the inappropriate relationship between Trump, his administration, and Fox News led me to conclude the network is not in a position to host a fair and neutral debate for our candidates, which is very fair because even if you agree to the ground rules, who knows what they're going to do?
There's zero trust, and you can't put your candidates in front of a network that now has an explicit political agenda connected to the other political party. So I think his views are again, they're totally rational and they make sense. I don't know if it's the smartest move, but you see where this is coming from.
Well, the Orange Idiot tweeted today at 7:05 p.m., just a short time ago, in response. Trump was angered by this, folks, because he is part of Fox. He's just making it more furthering evidence that they are one and the same, because now he's defending Fox News on Twitter. Just less than an hour ago, Trump tweets, "Democrats just blocked Fox News from holding a debate. Good. Then I think I'll do the same thing with the fake news networks and the radical left Democrats in the general election debates." Look, we've had callers weeks ago say Trump's not going to do any debates with the Democrats because he wants to destroy any norm of democracy. So it's not stunning if he were to pull out of this. It's not like in the primary where he needed it. What do you think? Do you think Trump might actually not do a debate as he tries to destroy our democracy?
I don't know if he would do that. The thing he's looking forward to all these years is the campaign. This is what he's waiting for. I think he'd love to have a primary challenger just so he can debate them, and I'm sure he's waiting. He loves this. You see when he's at his rally, it's the only time he seems to enjoy himself. So I don't know if he'd give up that airtime. He doesn't mind going on TV a lot on every network. He's watching it. I think in the end he wouldn't do that, but it's not great to have the president making these kinds of threats, especially after the accumulation of stories we now have about him intimidating the media, being willing to go after the media. This is just one more example of his lack of care for presidential power and how it can be misused.
And I won't play any clips because I did this too much Monday, but Trump at CPAC, that was over a 2-hour, over a 2-hour speech. That was a tour to stupid, I call it. Like it was like a one-man show. He acted out things. He did impressions of a Southern guy.
Yes.
Is it concerning what you saw? I mean, on a different level, or is it just Trump being Trump?
It's not different than what we have seen. The rhetoric was all the same. I mean, his style of delivery is troubling, but if it's troubling now, it should have been a few years ago. It's not that different. He rambles. He tells flow of thought, what's on his mind. The hugging of the flag was a bit odd. Not sure exactly what he was doing, but maybe that was a photo op he wanted, that he's literally hugging this country. I always imagine he has some little strategy there. But look, he sees this as a TV show. This is very much his mentality. And so he loved the 2 hours of entertaining you and entertaining his opponents. I think there's part of him that has no problem if everyone's talking about how crazy that speech was because they're talking about it.
He loves attention. There's no doubt the man loves to be the center of attention.
But it's troubling. It's troubling. This is not, there has to be a moment when people say that's not what a president should be doing. And some are.
I mean, you're a historian. No. Has there been a president, I mean, be it before modern day, perhaps? Has there been any presidents that were this self-indulgent, is another way of putting it, that just enjoyed, because they're all about ego. If you run for president of the United States, you've got a pretty fair ego, no matter what. But the idea of, this was 2+ hours. I mean, and he was just sweating by the end. He was a mess. And I mean, seriously, like I didn't watch it. I'm not going to watch it anymore. I watch clips here and there to make fun of it, but can you think of a modern day president?
I mean, there's lots of self-indulgent presidents. There's lots of obsessed presidents obsessed with themselves. That is part of what presidents are. There's mean presidents. But what you see is it disturbs people because it seems kind of out of control. It really seems like a family member who might not have everything together anymore is just talking at the table and everyone's kind of ignoring them, except this is the president. So it's very different. And certainly in modern presidential history, I've never seen speeches like this. Never.
My mom has got some issues, so we have a home health care aide living with her. Do you think Melania is a home health care aide? Is that what? Julian can't respond because he wants to keep his reputation.
Right.
Mac, can we play a clip from yesterday? Are you able to get the clips from yesterday? I want to play, to me, what was one or two of the most stunning clips from Michael Cohen's testimony, and I want to see just your reaction to them. Do you have the one, Matt, the one, first of all, the Fifth Avenue one. It's from yesterday. It's the longer one, and then we'll play the shorter one.
And when Mr. Trump turned around early in the campaign and said, I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and get away with it, I want to be very clear. He's not joking. He's telling you the truth. You see, you don't know him. I do. I sat next to this man for 10 years, and I watched his back. I'm the one who started the campaign. And when he goes on Twitter and he starts bringing in my in-laws, my parents, my wife, what does he think is going to happen? He's sending out the same message that he can do whatever he wants. This is his country. He's becoming an autocrat. And hopefully something bad will happen to me, on my children, on my wife, so that I will not be here and testify. That's what his hope was. It was to intimidate me.
You know, a lot of people make analogies to Watergate. This sounds less like All the President's Men and more like Godfather 2.
Yes.
I mean, when you hear him testify, this could be a scene from a racketeering trial. When he says that, believe him, he'll kill people. When you hear these words about Michael Cohen, who Donald Trump picked, we didn't pick, Democrats didn't pick him, 2007 to be executive vice president, who took care of his fixing. When you hear that, is it alarming? And what can we do to protect our nation?
Well, it's obviously alarming. Michael Cohen, as everyone knows, he's not the best witness, in part because he lies and he's been caught lying, in part because he was part of this system willingly. But often the best witnesses are people who had done that and they turn. But it is alarming because essentially what he's saying isn't that President Trump can get away with anything. He's saying he will intimidate, threaten, and harass people to make sure he gets away with things. And that's the essence of what's dangerous in a president. And if a president understands the boundaries of what they can do and is willing to live within those boundaries, that checks them. That's not happening anymore. So that is frightening, combined with the fact that his party has enabled him to do all this. So other than the House Democrats, there's no check on him doing what Michael Cohen says he is doing. And it's not a secret.
No.
He's doing it in public. So these kinds of threats, you didn't have to watch Michael Cohen to know that's what he does. He's been called on this all the time. Michael Cohen's just saying, yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. It's what you think.
And it's as bad as you think, if not worse. And then here was a comment, the last comment near the end of Michael Cohen's closing statement. It's a comment my listeners have said to me in the past over time. And Michael Cohen saying it, a man who knows Donald Trump very, very well, saying it, I think is extremely alarming. I just don't know what to do in response about it. Let's hear that clip.
Indeed, given my experience working for Mr. Trump, I fear that if he loses the election in 2020, that there will never be a peaceful transition of power. And this is why I agreed to appear before you today.
I've got to be honest. I mean, so many of us believe that if Trump loses, it's a Scarface type of last scene ending. Like, it's not going to be good. And I don't know what he'll do. And I don't really believe he'll get elements of the military to surround the White House and like some kind of like Venezuela type of thing. But that resonates with me. And I don't know what to say other than that. I don't want to be hyperbolic about my concerns, but I have grave concerns. And Michael Cohen made me more stressed out.
Look, the concerns are legitimate. You're not alone. It's not easy for something like that to happen, and it's not like all of a sudden the military in this country is going to go to protect President Trump if he loses to stay in office somehow. I think that's an imagined fear. I'm sure there's some supporters who would be furious, who would say this is a coup and there might be violence, but I don't think it's going to be widespread. And let's remember, President Trump, as Donald Trump, has lost many times in his life. In business, he often lost. He went bankrupt, and he didn't always recover, and he didn't always have some uprising to support him.
But now he has got a passionate base of people.
He has a passionate base, but I maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think things would move on.
It's interesting. Someone's calling to say President Harding was full of himself. Are you aware of anything with President Harding?
He was full of himself, but so is Lyndon Johnson, and so is Bill Clinton. Again, this is part of the presidency. What we're talking about, someone who goes out in public like this, when the cameras are on, or back then when the photos were being shot, and just rambles like that, a 2 hour.
Let's see what Roger, maybe Roger's an historian on President Harding. Yeah. Roger, how are you?
I'm okay. I'm not a historian on President Harding. 2015, someone mentioned Harding, and I happened to have been in Ohio and watched a documentary, a black and white documentary on Harding. Well, Harding started his campaign on his front porch, and he entertained both the broadcast and print journalists every day of that campaign. he was a failed business person. His wife actually saved his business, which was a newspaper business, and obviously he died in office. Mm-hmm. But his policies of trickle downs, that Reagan thing, trickle down, started with Harding.
Is that what started? Julian nodding. Yes, you won a prize.
Harding and Coolidge. That era of the 1920s, and the economic policies are it's about cutting taxes, and it's about giving the wealthy more money. That's often seen as the foundation for Reagan era politics.
Now,
interesting.
The hilarious part is what the working stiffs and poor people called it. They called it the horse and oats theory, meaning that the horse was the rich people. They ate all the oats, and what wasn't digested, the birds or sparrows would eat that. But obviously there's nothing in the middle for the other animals to eat. So
it's interesting little news on President Harding. Not something we've ever talked about. You had the perfect guest, Julian Zelizer here, Princeton professor on history.
I kind of wish I was as smooth as Julian, as how he speaks, because Julian's I'm stumbling over my tongue.
No, you're doing great. What are you talking about, Roger? You sound great. All right, Roger. Thanks, my friend. I appreciate the call. That's the thing about President Harding. It's also interesting to see in history certain things that might make you feel more comfortable, even though we're in a place that seems like we're out at sea in a little lifeboat and a storm's coming. Or maybe you're concerned. I'm not sure. So you talked about Michael Cohen not being the most credible person. The Quinnipiac poll that came out yesterday asked Americans, who do you believe more, Trump or Michael Cohen? I love this. 50% believe Michael Cohen to only 35% Donald Trump. So 50% of Americans believe a convicted liar over Donald Trump, who's just an unconvicted liar. I mean, he's a liar. On some level, this poll, and I'll get to the next thing in a second about it, shows the American public is paying attention. It's not like just us who talk about politics. People get the guy's a liar. I mean, according to that Quinnipiac poll, his truthfulness is at the lowest it's been in the entire time of polling right now. And that one poll, I should say, that came out yesterday.
Yeah. Look, I think his public presence in our life, the President of the United States, which is beyond just people who follow politics, is so great that all his negatives, and there are many, are going to be known. And he doesn't tell the truth. This is just something even his followers understand about him. But it is disconcerting that in the end, that's okay for millions of people in this country as a legitimate form of presidential leadership. And I think many people feel Michael Cohen might be a liar and might have done criminal things with the president. But at that moment, he had really much less to lose. And it gave the feeling of someone who it seemed like a confession in addition to a mob trial. And that's what he was saying. And so everything he said rung true if you've just been following the president.
Sure.
And I think that's part of why people believe the testimony, even if they don't necessarily believe in him.
And I had Danny Savalas on last night, who used to be CNN guy, now an MSNBC legal analyst, who's a defense attorney. And I also had on other people who are former prosecutors who made the point, defense attorneys will always claim that the witness who is a convicted something testifying against their client, he's a criminal, he's bad, blah, blah, blah. It works almost every time because a jury expects criminals to hang out with other bad people. Who else is going to turn on a criminal but a fellow criminal in their little conspiracy? So if this ever got to a trial, what you saw of Michael Cohen was a very credible witness because he didn't oversell things. He was very, to the chagrin, I'm sure, of some Democrats. And he was very, didn't see the conspiracy with Russia. I suspect it. I think exact words were I suspect it, but I didn't see it. So when we come back, I want to take a break because also in the Quinnipiac poll was stunning percentage of Americans who believe Donald Trump committed crimes before he was president. And I don't know if even Richard Nixon, if Americans even at any time thought Nixon could have committed, what percentage of Americans could have believed that he committed crimes. Let's come back, chat with our friend Julian Zelizer right after this. Progressive values are the best of American values, and we need to keep fighting for them to save our country.
Don't go anywhere. This is the Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
I'm Dean Obeidallah. I want to be your MBFF, and I'm really needy.
First, you got to follow him on Twitter at Dean Obeidallah or catch him on Facebook at facebook.com/Dean of Radio.
And welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live right here with our friend Julian Zelizer. You know, if the Republicans would let me conduct a debate in the Republican primaries in 20, that would be kind of good. So we're talking about the Cohen thing. So here was Quinnipiac poll that made a lot of headlines. They asked Americans simply, do you believe Donald Trump committed crimes before serving as president? The answer, 64%, folks. That's almost 2/3 of Americans believe Donald Trump is a criminal. Now, before entering office, the number got much lower. They asked, do you think he's committing crimes as president? It's almost 50-50. It's that close. Can you think of a time in the history where 64% of Americans thought the president of the United States was a criminal?
No, I mean, I was looking at the poll numbers for Nixon, and in January and February of 1974, remember, Nixon resigns in August, his approval rating is at its highest, 69% of Americans approve of what he's doing. And I don't know if there was any polls asking, I don't think it was on their mind if he was criminal or not. But that's what you were talking about, a very popular president. So
Nixon was that popular at the end?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God! I didn't know that by the end. I assumed by then it had eroded.
In the fall, it collapses. And
so when people start hearing the hearings and all the evidence, it did destroy.
Oh, it had a huge effect. It was the hearings that do this.
Okay.
But what's amazing about that poll is it's not whether he was corrupt or unethical. Is he criminal? It's a very specific, and many people think he was, and it's logical that once he's president, they won't think the same. Because he is president, so but that's still a lot of people who think as president he's still committing crimes. So it is pretty stunning to see what people think of the commander-in-chief.
We're going through times. I don't know how it's going to end up in the long run, how we will heal, or are we going to be forever in a different world? I mean, just the contemplating a calm day, like with news today was almost a slow news day in a way.
Yeah.
That there was nothing explosive. Trump didn't tweet a lot. There wasn't. I mean, he might not be tweeting a lot because I think he only tweeted a couple of times today because there might be something coming out that he knows. We might be getting a Mueller report, as stunning as it seems on Friday. I don't think so. Or indictments. That's possible. Unlikely, but possible. He might know something. So you had a long Twitter run there about the idea of Watergate, and you started out saying, for all the pundits who are reminding readers that the Watergate hearings and investigation changed public opinion, which you just touched on, in 1973-74, there's an important caveat.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us?
Sure. And I'm one of the people who says hearings are important because that's how you shape public opinion, but it's not 1974. People lived through Watergate, and they lived through that impeachment. So that generation, the baby boomers, and even Gen X, which I'm one of, you remember the fallout from that and how horrible it is. And it's not an easy process, and it doesn't go away. A lot of our trust continued to erode after that moment. So people are more hesitant. Then they remember the Clinton impeachment, which was really partisan and really ugly, and you could see how the process can go totally off kilter. And so now when you talk about impeachment, the process, everyone remembers those two moments. And they remember all the scandal politics and partisanship of the last 2 decades. And so I think it's harder, even with polls showing people think he's criminal and that he's doing things badly now. When you go to impeachment, the numbers are low. And I think that's going to be a challenge for Congress to get people to see we can do this without the fallout of 74 or without the ugly partisan incentives of 1998. And that's going to be Congressman Nadler's, and Speaker Pelosi's biggest hurdle, in my opinion. People are scared for that. I think it's a difference.
No American president has ever been removed.
Right. Andrew Johnson came close. Nixon would have been removed. Clinton, it wasn't even close. But if there was ever a case, many people would say we're facing it right now.
But I wonder what would happen in the United States of America if there was that.
I don't know.
How would it affect in the long term? I mean, there's going to be an effect on the psyche of Americans.
Yeah.
And is it bolstering confidence? People go, look, the system worked. A corrupt president was removed. or not.
Yeah. Look, I'm of the position that Congress has to make this decision regardless of public opinion for the reason you're stating, that at some level, the job of Congress is to hold a president accountable. And if people think, and if there's evidence that he is doing things that are unethical, corrupt, high crimes and misdemeanors, if Congress lets it pass, that sets a new precedent. Then why go after another president who does that? And there is a role for Congress to say, you can't do this. We will go through impeachment proceedings. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we'll take a vote on what you've done and this record. And I do think that's important.
Look, if the Mueller report comes back, and we have no idea how it's going to be written. We don't know what's going to be released to us.
Yeah.
And there'll be fights over it. And I went through this on the other show in the past about Ken Starr, and his report was amazing detail because it was a different statute that controlled at the time. And we saw everything. And he actually articulated, I believe, 11 different things that are credible evidence to impeach a president. It was remarkable what he did. Then you look at, Iran-Contra with Lawrence Walsh, and his report was different. It was more like, here's everything. And he did a press conference, here's everything. And I wish I had more, and I did for 8 years, and I still can't get anyone the way I want. He got some convictions, indictment, but not of the big people he wanted. And because it seemed he thought Reagan had been lying, and he was stopped from getting certain evidence. And there was pardons by George Walker Bush leaving office that undermined his investigation further. But if they come back and the evidence is clear that it's only obstruction, let's say, a couple of counts of obstruction of justice, and the Democrats go, oh, we could impeach, but we cannot win in the Senate. We know we can't. I think they have to. I mean, the spectacle of Trump being on trial in the Senate, even though he doesn't have to sit there, but the idea of having him only being the third president in our history impeached would be important. And him having a trial in the Senate, even if it's lost. But if the evidence is so compelling, maybe some Republicans come over. Maybe you get to 20. I don't know if they'd be fearful to be part of that history or not.
Look, I think the evidence is, I don't think you even need the Mueller report. I mean, the Mueller report is important, but you can make an argument, I just did in my new CNN column, why you don't need a smoking gun. There's lots of evidence, including the obstruction of justice that's taken place in broad daylight, not in secret. There's lots of evidence about conflict of interest that has potentially shaped policy at a minimum for Congress to do what it's now doing, meaning opening the investigation, holding hearings, hopefully, and looking at evidence. But if all this is what it seems hard that you don't start a formal impeachment proceeding, because these are high crimes and misdemeanors that people are pointing to. And Congress has a responsibility. They have to, in the end, decide if to take a vote. The whole process has gotten screwed up, and that everyone is saying, if you can't impeach, then you don't do any of the process.
You can't remove.
The point of the process is to see, A, if there's a problem, and B, if you remove. And the hearings, even though I laid out the challenges, the hearings are the best bet to make a case that something's wrong.
Now, Lawrence Tribe, he was on my show a few months ago to talk about his book, and his big thesis was, if you can remove them, do it, but if you can't, don't do any of it.
Yeah.
But that's not, it can't be a political calculation. Although impeachment is a political remedy, we know it is. That can't be. If there's evidence a president had committed crimes, you have impeachment hearings in judiciary. If the evidence is sufficient, they vote it out of committee, it goes to the whole House. If Democrats are not going to risk their careers either, if there's not enough evidence, they're going to go, like, you know what, I'm troubled by this, but I don't think it's the point of you going to impeach a sitting president. So I think there's going to be more discretion. I have to hope. I don't think it's going to be near jerk because, today Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib said, I'm going to introduce an impeachment resolution. Got a lot of press, but Al Green, the congressman, already did that. I mean, we've had this before. Mark Pocan was telling me in the minority they voted for it. They were just waiting to do it in the majority. So
most of the key evidence that came out with Nixon came out through the hearings.
Yeah.
People forget even the smoking gun is a product of the House Judiciary Committee doing the process. The smoking gun didn't come first. So you're not going to... John Dean revealed... He
was the one that revealed the tapes.
He did it in the Irving Committee. The tapes were revealed because Congress was asking and investigating. If you cut that whole part out, you'll never have a real case. The Mueller report is going to be unsatisfying. I'm 90% sure because of how the law says it should be written.
Right.
So you need to have the hearings.
And Michael Cohen, on some level, was the feel of an impeachment hearing. That's definitely what that felt like right there. Exactly. It was John Dean for a day. Although, people are stunned John Dean testified for a week, but look, Cohen was back on the Hill today.
Yeah.
So he's been there 4 days. That's almost a week, only one in public. And today, apparently, from what the reporting was, he outlined where Trump's lawyers, like Jay Sekulow, changed his testimony to give to Congress to comport with Trump's lies. So you're implicating Trump's lawyers now. Jay Sekulow could be a conspiracy to lie to Congress. And but what we're getting to right now is we're seeing the making of a constitutional crisis. You just had Trump yesterday saying, I'm not giving you the documents you want to Nadler's people. And then you have House Ways and Means saying the next 2 weeks they're going to want the tax returns. And Trump's like, we're not going to give the tax returns. That's what we've heard already, and it's expected. We're going to have this fight. This is going to be a constitutional crisis. Is that the definition of a constitutional crisis, when you have House going and Elijah Cummings going, this is my job, we're oversight, and you're saying, no, it's going to go to court. They're going to subpoena, it's going to go to court. Is that a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, that is when the mechanisms of the Constitution are not working and there is gridlock over how to do them, and you're going to the courts, that's where you are. The courts would decide it, as they did with Nixon and the tapes. They decided that Nixon had to turn over the tapes. They did the same with the Pentagon Papers. It'll be a battle between executive privilege, which he is now invoking, and he will invoke even more aggressively, and the right of the public to have these kinds of documents. I don't know who's going to win. It might be a crisis. It might be that he's able to protect what he needs to protect.
Trump was saying, I'm not giving documents because Obama never gave documents, which is the typical Trumpian thing. Meanwhile, in Fast and the Furious and Benghazi, the administration turned over tons of documents. Sometimes they dragged their feet, because I went back and researched with Fast and the Furious. They did, and ultimately they turned it over. But in Benghazi, they turned it over a ton and fought over a few. Because then you'll fight over executive privilege over a few documents, and that's normal. But they go, we're not giving you anything because Obama didn't give you anything. That's not executive privilege. That's just like, we're not doing anything. And maybe his lawyers go, like, there's certain things you got to do. You got to at least make a showing. Give them some stuff.
Yeah.
And because it's stunning that Donald Trump overruled intelligence agencies to give both his daughter and his son-in-law, because we live in a third world country, clearance over the objections of the CIA, as the New York Times report, over the CIA. I don't know what the CIA was worried about for Kushner. We can all speculate, and everyone speculated, but this is not the President of the United States giving his daughter and his son-in-law security clearance over intelligence agencies' objections is beyond not normal. This is third world country banana republic garbage.
The problem at the heart of every impeachment is, has a president abused their power? That's really the issue. And a story like that matters because it gives you a hint at what he's willing to do to get what he wants. Kushner, his daughter, also connect to business issues and the economic interests of the family and how that affects policy. So it's actually a big question in terms of why were they denied this clearance. And it gets to this bigger problem with the emoluments clause.
Right.
And so every little story like this opens up a question. And that's why Congress can't just punt. They did. Part of what House Republicans did is they delayed. They held off. We're now in 2019. And the closer you get to an election, that's another reason a lot of Democrats will say, well, just let's wait.
You just touched on abuse of power, which is an important term. From the point of view of impeachment and from history, can you give us a definition of what abuse of power is so that we're all on the same page?
It's what Congress says it is. So
really? Just like impeachment, the famous answer.
Look, abuse of power is certainly using presidential prerogatives and authorities certainly beyond the norms of the time, beyond what the Constitution allows, but still doing it. Those are the best definitions. But then there's gray areas. Is it an abuse of power to go on Twitter and to, promote people who are loyal to you like a Roger Stone and send out intimidating or disrespectful or nasty messages about people who testify against you? Is that not abusing your power in an investigation about yourself? I don't think it's in the Constitution. There was no Twitter. It's not even clear at this point what the norms are, but I think there's a case that Congress can make. That's an abuse of power. You're watching it.
Do you think the security clearance issue could be considered an abuse of power? I mean, you wouldn't remove a president just for that, but if you have a litany of issues, that might be one in there. If you have 10 or 11 counts that you go to judiciary with ultimately an articles of impeachment, then people voted out of committee. Because I remember Ken Starr, I believe, recommended 11, and I can't remember how many got voted out of committee, but it wasn't 11. And then ultimately they got smaller and smaller till it got to the Senate.
Yeah, I mean, he has the right to give it to whoever he wants. He can give you a security clearance if he wants, even if so. He
just
had
to
the
screw me over.
He had the authority.
Dino is my favorite guy.
But the question again is, what was the concern, and how did the concern about the two of them relate to other problems and suspicions people have about what's gone wrong with the administration? That's where it could be an abuse of power. Is this connected to economic issues that have affected public policy in Saudi Arabia? And yet he wanted Kushner in the room. Those are the kinds of abuses. But he does have a lot. We have to remember, presidents have a lot of power, and that's part of what insulates them.
What a horrible mistake this has been with Donald Trump. I mean, just on so many levels. All right, let's take a break. I want to come back and talk about Joe Biden watch, which is going on. He's the person that the media keeps asking about, but none of my callers do. I have to be honest with you. No one, I get a sense, dislikes Joe Biden, but I have to be blunt. I'm trying to think about it. Think of any one time where any caller said, I want Joe Biden to get in there. Everyone else, I've got a million calls on who they like, from even like Sherrod Brown now people have called, and the whole list of the A-list people. But the media is waiting for him, and we know why. He's top guy in the polls. Well, I want to talk about when would he have to get in it, and when is he hurting the Democratic Party by not making a decision, hurting the other candidates? So let's take a break, come back with our friend Julian Zelizer and talk about Joe Biden watch and how it hurts and helps us at the same time. Look, it's time the media start calling out Trump's false statements for what they are. Lies. Trump is a liar. And by the looks of it, he's lying every day and twice on Sundays.
The Dean Obadala Show. You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, Sirius XM's Progress.
Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah, here with our friend Julian Zelizer. And I said no one's ever called to say they like Joe Biden, so of course I threw the gauntlet down. And Rodney from Oklahoma has picked the gauntlet up. Rodney, how are you, Rodney?
Dean, my brother, you got to quit ditching on Joe Biden.
I'm not. No. That wasn't. No, you got Julian Zelizer here who wrote a whole article, got stuff. My point is, Rodney, I was sharing empirical data. No one has called until just now to say, I like Biden. People have called for every candidate. No one's called to say they don't like Biden either. But I was just saying the energy was not Biden-centric. Do you like, I'm not saying I like Joe Biden, but I'm not going, oh my God, Biden, get in there. This is our savior.
Well, look, Dean, I can tell you right now that all this socialism talk is hurting.
That's Fox News is talking socialism. We're not talking socialism. Fox News is.
Yes, but when you put out things like the Green New Deal that has guaranteed outcomes, it's right to be ripped on. And look, we need to beat the orange monster.
Right.
We need to go a moderate way. Now, I'm a moderate. I'm left of center.
I know. I was telling Julian before I picked up the phone. I'm like, I told him who you are. I said, Rodney's a center-left Democrat in Oklahoma.
Right, but so he fits with me great. But I firmly believe that's where we got to go. And Dean, AOC has to watch what she says. She needs to be a workhorse, not a show horse. It's killing us.
You can tweet that to her later. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
she's going to do. That's who she is. She's. I think she is great at raising awareness. I think she's speaking a language that a younger generation uses all the time. And I'm going to marry her one day, so don't ruin it, Rod. No, I'm kidding. So, no, I think actually overall she's great. I mean, honestly, that she's in the beginning I wasn't so sure. Now I'm really like she's changing things for the better within the Democratic caucus. Let's see how it plays out in the long run. But Ronnie, a guy in Oklahoma, I get it. I mean, Democrats not going to carry your state no matter what, but Joe Biden might have a better chance, might in some of the Midwest states. We'll see. Right. I think the energy,
and he's beating Donald Trump by 10 points.
It's remarkable in those polls. They're early. All right, Rodney, thanks for the call, my friend. So I destroyed my entire thing. So I've had one call for Biden. It was never against Biden. It's not like I'm against Biden. If he was a nominee, I'd be happy to work for him. I hope he picks a person, preferably a woman of color, to be his VP, let's say. But what about the fact that there is the energy of our Democratic Party right now is clearly on the left, on the progressive left. Should we nominate go pragmatic and go, let's have someone in the center when the energy's not there? I think you have to go where the energy is.
I think so. Look, whoever is the nominee, they will be attacked as an extreme socialist. Joe Biden will as well. So we have to start with it. This won't insulate him from being painted that way. Look at, in 1988, the Democratic nominee was Michael Dukakis, who was in the center. He was a technocrat. And Lee Atwater and George H.W. Bush presented him this far-left ACLU card-carrying liberal.
I remember.
And it worked. And the danger with Biden is, it's a little like John Kerry in 2004. You have the experience, but it kind of falls flat when he's actually campaigning. Biden has lost twice when he ran. He didn't even lose by a little. He did terribly as a campaigner. And it wasn't simply saying things, putting his foot in his mouth. He just wasn't a great campaigner. He didn't excite people. He didn't make it. And you have to remember that. 2 tries is a lot. And I think finally it's both the left has energy, but you have a Democratic Party that has totally changed in its demographics. And Obama understood that in 2008. His coalition included African Americans. It included younger voters. It included female voters who said, hey, this is different. This is a new party. And I think there's a great opportunity now for a non-Biden, and it might be a Sherrod Brown. It doesn't have to be a female candidate, but someone who represents a different part of the Democratic Party to have that energy in states like Georgia or North Carolina or swing states. I think that might be more important than experience. Experience often falls flat. Look at 2016. Look at 2004. So I think Biden could be a fine candidate, but it's not a slam dunk that he's just going to walk in. And I'll tell you one thing. I think President Trump, although he says he's most worried maybe about him, he will love to fight with Joe Biden because it will be easy for him. You know, two older guys just going at it. And I can imagine those being really ugly debates where I think he might have trouble with some of the, other candidates who are pretty. Kamala Harris, I think, is a really sophisticated, sharp candidate.
I think she could be great.
Yeah.
By the way, if you remember back to 88, the big thing was they kept attacking Dukakis as a liberal, and he kept denying he was a liberal. He goes, I'm not a liberal, I'm not a liberal. We're going to have the same thing with socialism. What do you think, has history shown us, what's the best way to deal with that argument?
There is no way to win the argument. I actually don't. I think the socialism thing is overblown. I mean, the Democrat, there's a few socialists. Most of the party, they're not socialists.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter for what they're going to run their campaign.
That's the point. Or that the Fox campaign. I mean, they're going to elevate that. I think the way Democrats run it is putting out good ideas and putting out policies that work. So let a Republican say it's socialism. Let them say it's communism. Let them say whatever it is. The way you win hearts and minds are through good programs. We'll help you with your health care. That's how you beat that. You'll never get the opposition to get rid of that label. It's classic.
No, they're going to use it all the time, and we have our own. And the Green New Deal, it's funny, we have our Green New Deal to help address climate change. The Republicans have had a Green New Deal, which is, the idea of we're going to cut taxes for the rich. That's the green we're talking about. So it's kind of a different contrast. So let's take a quick break, come right back with our friend Julian.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Whoever's the next president, we should call him the 45th president of the United States. And this will go down as a dark time in America that we'll never refer to again.
SiriusXM Progress. new perspectives, important voices, influential ideas. This is the Dean Obadala Show on SiriusXM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. Hey, folks, how would you like the best toothbrush of your life? I'm not kidding. I'm not overselling it. Maybe slightly, but I love it. It is my best toothbrush. Quip, Q-U-I-P. It's an electric toothbrush. It's battery-powered, but has the power of electric. And it gets rid of all your bad brushing habits because you're supposed to brush for 2 minutes. We don't always do that. We, frankly, never do it. But Quip, press the button. Guess what? 2-minute brush every time. You can try it 30 days risk-free if you don't love it, but I love it. And every 3 months for $5, you get a replacement toothbrush and a new battery and toothpaste just for $5. And the toothbrush itself starts at just $25. You cannot beat it if you go to the stores. It's small, sleek, lightweight. I use it 3 times a day. No exaggeration whatsoever. It is great. And try it out. Go to getquip.com/Dean. Get your first refill for free. That's right. GetQuip, GetQuip.com/Dean. Check it out. It's a great toothbrush. So, Julian, last question here. At what point does Joe Biden not making a decision actually hurt the other Democrats who fundraisers might not join their campaign, delegates, people might not get on board? When does it hurt?
It's going to hurt soon, not just for that, but because everyone's comparing the other candidates to him as opposed to looking at them on their own terms and seeing them as strong, viable candidates. Everyone's waiting for Joe. And at some point, it's debilitating to the party.
A few more months? Another month? 2 months?
Yeah, I think he has to decide in a month or two.
Hey, we're in the middle of this now. Everybody's out except for he's one of the few left. Julian, thanks very much for your time. Check out Julian's articles on CNN. He's on Twitter at Julian Zelizer.
You got it. At Julian
Go
Zelizer.
check out his article. Great. He writes like every hour. He probably wrote 3 articles during this hour. Be back tomorrow. All new live show. Thanks for tuning in. I'm at Dean Obadala on Twitter or Dean at deanofradio.com. Drop me a line. Suggestions, comments, criticism, anything. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great night.